slide, we're here, talking about Christ the King, and here the piggy bank represents cash, and cash is king. And anybody that's in banking or economy or whatever, everybody was laughing at Warren Buffett when he sold a lot of his stocks high and went to cash. Oh, good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, now the pressure's really on.
Don't get serious, guys.
Good, you're already on it.
Yeah,
That's
well, I was
great.
trying to think of something clever about the piggy bank other than savings, And I was just saying cash is king.
Could I actually say a quick word about economics,
Sure.
the origins of the term?
Sure.
So this is just a little interesting fact for those of you who like the scriptures. I hope it's all of you. The word economy actually comes from two Greek words. One meaning house, oikos, and nomos, meaning rule. And so economia came to mean in Greek household, but more broadly the management of the household. And so that's where we get the idea of economics or economy from that. It's from managing the household. And so you can think of God's economics as how does God ask us to manage the household, which both means our own households, but also the whole household of God, which is the family. And so I thought that was a nice little preamble to what we're going to be talking about today. I also have some nice scripture quotes for us if we want to refer to those, and I'll pass those out.
Okay. What do you have here? Proverbs, Thessalonians, okay, Genesis. None of the ones that I selected.
Oh, you have your own.
I made some up.
Good, that's fine.
There's a lot in this Bible.
Fine. Well, you have your own scriptures, and
Yeah.
you can pick those up later. That's fine.
All right. Because John was kind enough to do some slides, and Gene asked me on Tuesday, would I work on this?
Perfect.
Yeah, so.
I twisted your arm.
Oh. Yeah, but anyway, Gene and I go back a long way together, and we've walked this walk.
And I'm just going to run downstairs and make sure that the scripts are being handed out, and I'll be back up to listen. Thank you.
Oh boy. So Gene was talking about economic justice and injustice, so we'll touch on those. We'll try to work through 3 short scriptures and blend them into some thoughts, and we can decide what we're going to do with them. We'll put them on the flip chart, and at the end, hopefully, we'll have a takeaway of something that you can use in your life. Manage the household and how big that household got in the macro sense in the world, right? What started out as, families are the basis of the economy. Really, it's just a linking and network of families. But as it gets bigger and bigger, it becomes more and more difficult to manage, and there's more and more ways to work around it to create the injustices, and to always follow the scripture. So, why don't we do the next slide? So the first one, it goes way back to the beginning, Genesis. God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. Okay, so we have growth in there, and the way to overcome injustices in the economy is, rather than people taking a slice of the pie and taking your slice, we can grow it and make it a bigger pie. Then everybody benefits. And so, right back when, multiply and replenish, okay, stewardship, we talked about environmental stewardship last time. I wasn't here, but who was here? Yeah, you were here. You were all here, okay? And there it is. Short and sweet. And some thoughts that I had in economics, they have the multiplier effect. The government puts money out in the Federal Reserve, in the economy when inflation was there to raise the rates. During the pandemic, they put money into the economy, and then when they were raising the rates, they took it out. So they were trying to keep the balance in there. But we know from this multiplier effect that if money goes into the economy, more people have it, more people spend it, it goes to the next person, that person spends it, and it becomes a ripple effect in the economy. So God's hoping that we multiply and have a ripple effect in our spiritual development too. So, then the next one, he that by usury and unjust gain increaseth his substance, and he shall gather it for him that will pity the poor. Okay, there's our injustice right up there. And if you have any credit cards and you don't pay them off in full every month, we know what that interest rate looks like, 20+%. To my mind, that is totally usurious, but somehow they get away with it because people that use it are willing to pay for it, because everything's on credit card these days. You go to the store even for a cup of coffee, they put in the credit card. So then, is there enough money to pay it off? And that's where unfairness really happens, because it keeps getting added. And the interest, and then if you have a nice late payment, then don't get me started. So the idea is to increase, if you do, if you are able to acquire some wealth, with substance, that you will spread it around. So you see a lot of people that make money and they donate it to hospitals and they have the wings named after them, or some foundation that does good works. So hopefully in our church, we're doing the same thing on a smaller scale. Okay, so the next one is, this is a long one. The Lord answered and said to them, Thou wicked and lawful servant, thou knowest that I reap where I sowed not, and gather where I have not. There's your injustice, Therefore I put my money into exchangers, and at my coming I should have received my own with usury, lots of interest, and therefore the talent, in this case, talent could be money from way back when, or it could be time, treasure, talent, It's not nice that we can translate that word today, into what we do here, and all of us do our work for the church and for the community. So the one that had the 10 talents got a good return on the money, and Jesus was happy about that. And then there was the one that for everyone that shall be given, he shall have abundance. So from him that shall not be taken away, even in which he hath. Cast yet the unprofitable servant to outer darkness, there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. The one that had the one talent, we remember, put it in the ground, didn't do anything with it, and got chastised for it. So one of the thoughts is, are we a 10-talent parish? Or are we a 5-talent parish? Hopefully not a 1-talent parish. But I, having been at Trinity for a long time, I really think that we're closer to the 10-talent in the spirit of the parish than one that is fighting amongst themselves and there's not much happening. We somehow find a way to make projects work and outreach work, our partnerships, etc. So I just think that's important to understand that we think of economic justice in terms of money. And what God was really talking about was God's economy of fairness and equality. And Jesus, why did he come? To help us, like a good teacher has to come and reiterate the lesson over and over until we get it. And one of the things that Gene and I learned in EFM was, we had to get it right when we studied all this scripture, but then we had to pass it on with loving kindness. And passing it on here is God wants us to pass up along this abundance to the next generation so they can use it and grow it, multiply it. So the economics of it, well, it sounds like the dismal science, and we have laws of demand and supply. We know that the supply, right after the pandemic, supply chains were weak, so the demand was there. That just looked, the inflation crept in. There's your basic law shown right up with on the current day. You've got diminishing, or you've got marginal utility, which means you go for the things that satisfy you at your needs first, and then you work your way down. And then the law of comparative advantage, where some countries have the advantage of cheap labor, like China, some have in India. They're good at textiles, and some of the Central American countries are good at bananas and fruits and whatever. But they have a competitive advantage, and so they utilize that for the benefit of their economy. In our thoughts here, we're trying to have a competitive advantage in that we've got God on our side. And I think that if you have spiritual richness, then you could have a lot of money, but if you're not happy, it's really sad, and people get depressed, and But I always find coming here to Trinity and getting renewed and in a community of spiritual people, that really helps me through some of these ups and downs of the economy. So I use that as a way to just keep going in a steady pace. Okay, so all right, what do we got? Okay, so here's the definition from Wikipedia. Everything's if you haven't got a Wikipedia, then the definition you're not You haven't got it right. So, we're talking about economic justice in terms of social justice and welfare economics. It's a set of moral and ethical principles for building economic institutions, where the ultimate goal is to create opportunity for each person to establish sufficient material foundation upon which to have a dignified, productive, and creative life. So, we know that the government, U.S. government, state governments, local governments, have laws, regulations, whatever, and they have money from tax income to give money for helping with the social equality and the welfare for wage disparities between those haves and have-nots. But we know that there's a lot more to do. Because it drops through the cracks, we still have persistent inequality, and we want to create opportunities for each person to have a decent life. And so, what ways would we have to help that along to give that person an opportunity? Well, there's education. Jean's well involved in education. That's her deal in Chester, right?
Yeah.
In mine too, I taught at Penn State and St. Joe's economics and finance and that type of thing. So my object was to help those to understand the real world of economics and business and how to operate in it. But do it right, do the right thing, and do it right. And so education is one. And then John and I were just talking ahead of time that another way to do it is through entrepreneurship. Okay, you're in a corporation, you reach the ceiling, you don't get promoted, you got some experience. What do? A lot of people break off and they start their own firms. Mike, you did that, right? You left the bank and you started your firm, and you built that up, and now we're giving back with it. So, an entrepreneurship can be not only local, and the SBA, Small Business Association, does have microloans for people that can qualify for anything up to $50,000, and they can use it to start a little business, and then you get the rewards of what you actually put into it. Now, notwithstanding the economic issues that go on with that, not everybody makes it, but most people that are dedicated to it build a nice business, and they create, and they tend to be more fair because it's their business, and the people that work for them are like family, and you want to do business with those people because they're treating everybody like a group of friends rather than employees that have to be managed. Everybody wants to do it because they like to do it. It's the same way being here at Trinity. We're here because we want to be here, because we want to share in that, what we've learned over the years and build up to promote a sanctuary for people can come and hopefully get the spiritual richness that they really are seeking. So that's some thoughts on economic justice. What else we got there? Okay, so one of the things that you're, in every presentation, you want to have a takeaway, and what are we doing as a church now and as individuals about this economic justice, injustice. Go ahead.
Well, and I also really like what you were just saying, Jay, even before we talk about what we're doing. I think what you're helping us do is how are we thinking, right? How are we thinking about all this? And one of the things I heard you say just at the end was that it's not just about thinking economically about justice, thinking about economic justice and God's economy, is partly about how we create opportunities for people to have a dignified and meaningful life.
Right.
But one of the ways to do that is also paying attention to where we spend.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're saying, what companies do you want to invest in? What small businesses maybe do you want to support? Because you want to help them grow what they're trying to grow, because you like the kind of community they are. So I heard that in what you were just saying.
Right. As a church, what are we doing? First thing that comes to mind is the thrift shop. Okay, it's not only an environmental thing. You're taking unused items, and the people that buy them, many of them need them, but they're getting a really opportunistic pricing, and you get back into circulation, be used again, so it saves going into the dumpster and back into the landfills, and generate the money, and it goes to outreach, and what we've been focusing on those is just not a little bit everywhere, but to our partners that we actually work with on a regular basis. The St. Mary's, the Chester East Sides, other community activities in Swarthmore, and that type of thing. Anybody have any other ones that they can think of?
Chester East Side.
Chester East Side, they've got a component for not only the food, and they're teaching the children in gardening, but they also have a computer room that they set up, and helping the learning process, that we're talking about education is the way out of this. So they have volunteers that come and work with the students on their homework after school, using the computer systems that they set up down there. And they're out in the community doing, and the positivity that you feel when you're working with the volunteers there. They're upbeat, they're helping people feel better, because they feel better about what they're doing, and they're helping, So, same way down in St. Mary's. Once upon a time, Chester East Side had a GED education component that Will was involved with it, and he was here last week. Did he talk about that?
No, I think
They're not doing
it. It has morphed into something very complicated. that
Right.
You can't do.
You can't do it. I was with them down there at Chester City Hall, and I don't think I could have passed that test. And I probably, even if I studied, I don't think I could have passed that GED. That was like a college exam, and it's supposed to be to help people get ready to learn different concepts and do some critical thinking, so they're more adaptable when they're in a work environment. So it's got to be faster, better, and smarter. That's the whole concept there.
Just a little tad bit on that. I am currently involved with some
I am currently involved with some young people who have been given the task of passing the GED, and they are afraid. And the adults who have given them that task don't yet understand the fear about taking this test. And so I'm trying to talk to them about alternatives and maybe some of the support these young people might have. But there's something called a high set that now is out there, and if you pass that, the state of Pennsylvania will give you a high school diploma from the state, which is a little bit easier than the GED. It's a paper and pen test, and it feels a lot more friendly. But that whole idea you're talking about for education, which is designed to help you have economic wealth and ease and all of that, sometimes can be foreboding to certain members of our population, I'll put it that way. So we have to figure out how to help them deal with that.
I had no idea. The GED, I thought it was just getting a high school diploma. I
Oh,
had
no.
no
Well, you-
Two
idea.
separate things.
Well,
No
when you start to explain the Pythagorean theorem to people that, were struggling
out
with
short.
basic math, and that's one of the ones on the GED test. You didn't learn that until you got to the upper level, geometries, trigonometries, and all those, and we're back on, 2 and 2 equals 4, sometimes it doesn't.
Depending on what base you're in.
Yeah, right. So, we make the hurdles high, to try to improve, but in fact, it's the mental stress of that. And we have mental stress in our lives all over.
So I'm thinking about how we can answer these questions, and I wonder if it might help to think in terms of categories of effort. So in my mind, there's the old maxim, give a person a fish, they eat for a day, right? Teach them how to fish, they eat for
1,000 years.
1,000 years or a lifetime, right? A li-
1,000 days.
Yeah, right, 1,000 days or a lifetime. So that's probably what we're talking about, right? People need to be sustained day to day so that they can also do the longer term work to learn how to fish. I think what's confounding about economic injustice is that it has multiple factors. There are these cycles that reinforce each other. So like where you live affects what school you get to go to, what your house is worth, the environmental conditions in which you live, et cetera, et cetera. So I think part of economic justice is also thinking at a third level, which is what are conditions of fairness that we want to try to create as a society. And that's really working at the policy level. So for me, it's really 3-tiered. It's helping people sustain at the day-to-day level. It's teaching them what they need to do to survive and thrive. But it's also working on the social conditions which give everyone a fair shake and help people really be their best, right? So I think of it in terms of those 3 levels of work. And sometimes I feel like we as Trinity do a lot of good work at the day-to-day level. We do a lot of feeding. We make, in a way, the thrift shop is at that level to some extent. I think we do some work at the level of teaching through individuals who are dedicated to that. I don't think that really is a parish commitment. And I don't really think we're, apart from the way we vote, again, I think only as individuals are people involved at the policy level. I don't think there's any sort of sense as a church that we engage in that kind of advocacy. And I think that's something for us maybe to think about. If we're serious about God's justice and God's economic justice, what are we as a church called to try to be part of creating?
Then, go ahead, Ian. You got your hand up. Go ahead.
I can't do the then, but I really haven't got this far because I'm stuck on the first two biblical quotations you cited. The second, they each had two parts. We
Right.
focused on the first part, but not the replenish, be fruitful, multiply, and replenish.
Right.
And that seems critical, especially when we're talking about environmental issues. And the second one about focused on in Proverbs, and the obligation. If you gain wealth, then you have the by interest and whatever, you have the obligation, there's an obligation to distribute it. And we haven't focused so much on that obligation. And, yes,
Yeah, so,
supporting policies that, I mean, it's at a government level, in
Right.
addition to including encouraging private enterprise and entrepreneurship, who seems to have missed the level of redistribution.
well, yeah, true, and it says in the first one, to multiply. Okay, well, that means you've got the money or the whatever benefit. Your job is not only to distribute it, but also to grow it. Figure out ways how to make it more, bigger pie, you know, not just keep the pie, you know, the same size. Same way with spiritual development. People come to church, they go through the routine, they leave. But what we're trying to help them do is think about something that's bigger and beyond what we can comprehend in our finite lives, you know. God's justice is infinite, His knowledge is infinite. We can't even begin to understand that, but we can discover it piece by piece along the way in our spiritual journey. So the older we get, the more we realize, you know, that we're at where we want to try to answer those questions and try to be. We move away from having to make the money to how do we live out our lives in spiritual fullness.
I remember I had a kind of a quasi aunt in my life, and she said, I've reached the stage where I'm no longer trying to accumulate, I'm trying to disseminate, I'm trying to get rid of, you know, give away. I wonder if there are other comments in the room.
Well, I
Right,
know,
okay, Mark.
media is a fair trade. Media is a fair trade city,
Right.
town,
What does
and
that mean?
pardon me.
What does that mean?
It means that it's built on individual companies, that it's not for total profit. It's more for helping people, entrepreneurs, and for residents. It's where you want to put in, I shop the small businesses instead of always going to a box store. Where the money is going out to help people. It's a way that you feel that you're helping the community.
Barb, isn't it, it's a commitment to like fair wages and products that are sourced, even if they're sourced in other countries, there's some kind of effort to look into how those products in other countries are being produced, whether the workers are being taken care of? Is
Yeah.
that kind of,
That's where 10,000 Villages comes in. There's a little store in Media where individual countries are represented, that the money goes out to these areas, which is a lot of South America, Central America.
I didn't realize that media had a citywide commitment
Yeah.
to moving that direction. That's good
Yes.
news.
It bills itself as the first fair trade town.
Oh, good.
It's everybody's hometown, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I need to wrap on my end, but you have any other, Bill?
I was just, as you were talking, Jay, thinking about what popped into my mind with our antitrust laws. There is, if someone has something that's unique and it's all theirs, and so they start using it in ways that are contrary to being fair to society, they can be sued, and that particular whatever it is that they have, patent or whatever, can be taken away from them because they've been using it in unfair ways. And so that's another area of, I don't know that we always enforce it well, but that is a law that was created to deal with some of those issues.
How long is a patent these years? Is it 14 years or has it changed?
It's changed, but I'm not going to be able to tell you right off the top of my head.
I think, you know, two big policy issues, and I'm not gonna try to answer how we as a society should decide, but I think two big policy issues that perennially come up are capital gains rate and also the inheritance tax. Right. So what is the proper amount of regulation or control that we want to give the government to ensure some redistribution